Wade Wilson. This name has been in all recent headlines about real crimes. Known for his coldness and narcissism, Wade shocked the world with his brutal crimes. He grew up in a loving foster family, but upon turning 18, decided to contact his biological father, initiating a series of disturbing events. His actions culminated in horrible murders, including those of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, crimes he confessed to his own father with frightening details. But who really is Wade Wilson? What led a man who received love and education to become a ruthless killer? Don't miss out, as the unfolding of this story is as disturbing as Wade's crimes themselves. Stay with us until the end to know all the details of this sinister trajectory. Wade Wilson was adopted as a baby by Candy and Steve Wilson, a loving couple who always wanted children. They provided Wade with a home full of affection, care, and stability, living in a quiet neighborhood and offering all opportunities for healthy and happy development. Candy, a dedicated teacher, and Steve, a civil engineer, made sure to be present in Wade's life, participating in his school and extracurricular activities. They highly valued education and moral principles, enrolling Wade in a respected private school, hoping he would have a quality education and develop strong ethical values. From an early age, Wade began to show concerning behaviors that were initially seen as childish mischief. However, these behaviors included episodes of aggression and social isolation, alarming his adoptive parents. Worried, Candy and Steve sought professional help, and Wade went through several therapy sessions. The results were inconsistent, with some experts suggesting the need for more intensive treatments. As he entered adolescence, Wade began to question his identity and the fact of being adopted. These questions often resulted in conflicts with his adoptive parents, who tried, unsuccessfully, to offer answers and support. Wade became increasingly distant, showing disinterest and even contempt for Candy and Steve, and spent long periods away from home, refusing to share details of his life. At 16, Wade committed his first significant crime, robbing a convenience store and violently assaulting the cashier. This incident marked the beginning of his criminal trajectory. Although deeply affected by the act, the Wilsons still tried to justify Wade's behavior as a rebellious phase of adolescence. They hired a lawyer to minimize legal consequences, and Wade was placed on probation. However, this incident left deep marks on the family relationship, showing that Candy and Steve's influence over Wade was rapidly diminishing. Upon turning 18, Wade Wilson decided to seek out his biological father, Stephen Tester Seeker. This meeting marked the beginning of a troubled relationship, full of tensions. Wade, driven by curiosity about his origins and a need to better understand his own identity, found in Stephen a figure he hoped would fill the void left by the doubts of his adoption. However, the relationship between Wade and Stephen was far from what he had imagined. Stephen, who had not participated in Wade's upbringing, showed little emotional interest and saw his son more as an obligation than as a true family bond. Wade, in turn, seemed to seek approval and financial help from Stephen, trying to establish a connection that had never existed. The interactions between them were tense and often marked by arguments. Stephen was reluctant to offer Wade the financial support he asked for, creating a climate of constant frustration and resentment. Wade, desperate for acceptance and resources, ended up confessing to his biological father the crimes he had committed. He recounted in detail the brutal murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, describing the acts with frightening coldness. These confessions not only shocked Stephen, but also put him in a difficult position. Stephen, initially incredulous, eventually recognized the gravity of his son's actions and, fearing for his own safety and what else Wade might be capable of, decided to report him to the authorities. This decision led to Wade's arrest on October 8, 2019. In the period following his detention, Wade maintained an arrogant and remorseless posture, frequently changing his version of the facts. In court, his presumptuous behavior and lack of remorse only reinforced the image of a cold and calculating individual, completely devoid of empathy. The relationship with Stephen, which had never been strong, completely deteriorated after the denunciation. Stephen found himself forced to face the reality of having a murderous son, while Wade seemed increasingly distant from the idea of redemption or remorse, consolidating himself as a figure of horror and violence in public perception. Wade Wilson's first murder victim was Christine Melton. On October 6, 2019, Christine was a young woman full of life and plans for the future, and the two met at a local bar. Wade, with his charm and attractive appearance, quickly caught Christine's attention. They talked 4 hours, and Christine, unaware of Wade's dark intentions, felt at ease with him. That same night, Wade convinced Christine to let him go to her apartment. She, trusting in the new friendship that seemed promising, agreed. At the apartment, everything seemed normal until Christine fell asleep. It was at this moment that Wade showed his true nature. He approached her silently and, without hesitation, began to strangle her. Christine tried to resist, but it was useless. Wade's strength and the surprise of the attack left her with no chance of defense. After committing the murder, Wade didn't stop to reflect on what he had done. He acted coldly, as if he were fulfilling an ordinary task. Wade searched Christine's apartment, taking some valuables before focusing on his main objective, her car. He knew the car would be useful for his escape and to continue his criminal acts. With the keys in hand, Wade left Christine's apartment and drove away from the crime scene. He drove without a certain destination, but with a sense of control and power that motivated him to move forward. For Wade, this murder wasn't just a crime. It was a demonstration of his ability to manipulate and destroy lives without being shaken. Wade spent the following days using Christine's car, hiding in different locations and avoiding drawing attention. He knew that the police would eventually link Christine's disappearance to the stolen car, but this was part of his plan. Wade liked living on the edge, feeling the adrenaline and tension that his crimes generated. He delighted in the idea of being one step ahead of the authorities, challenging them to capture him. During this period, Wade continued his search for new victims, always with the same pattern of behavior, approaching, gaining trust, and attacking when least expected. The murder of Christine Melton was just the beginning of a series of crimes that revealed Wade Wilson's true face to the world. On October 6, 2019, after murdering Christine Melton and stealing her car, Wade Wilson was looking for his next victim. He found Diane Ruiz walking alone on a quiet street. Diane, a 43-year-old woman, was known to be a kind and friendly person with no apparent enemies. Wade spotted her and decided to approach her, disguising his intentions with friendly conversation. Wade started the conversation casually, trying to gain Diane's trust. He was skilled at manipulating situations and soon managed to get her to lower her guard. However, as soon as he felt comfortable with her proximity, Wade acted quickly and attacked her. He strangled her with brutal force, catching her completely off guard. Diane struggled desperately for her life, but Wade was relentless. After strangling Diane to death, Wade didn't stop there. He dragged her lifeless body to the street and returned to Christine Melton's stolen car. With shocking coldness, Wade got into the vehicle and accelerated towards Diane's body, repeatedly running her over. He passed over her body with the car several times, ensuring she was dead, and that there was no doubt about his deadly intention. The injuries to Diane's body were horrific. She suffered multiple fractures, including broken ribs and a crushed nose. The violence of the attack left deep marks on the asphalt and fragments of tissue and blood scattered across the street. After the crime, Wade fled the scene, leaving Diane's mutilated body exposed to be found later. Diane Roos's body was discovered 3 days later, on October 9, 2019. The crime scene shocked investigators and the local community. The brutality of the murder and the disregard for human life demonstrated by Wade were evident. The investigation quickly linked the crime to Christine Melton's stolen car, which was found nearby. The evidence collected, including testimonies and security camera records, helped reconstruct Diane's last moments and confirm Wade Wilson as the perpetrator of the attacks. After the murders of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, Wade Wilson was still at large and determined to continue his series of crimes. On October 8, 2019, he decided to seek out his ex-girlfriend, Melissa Montanez, in Fort Myers. Melissa and Wade had a complicated history, marked by conflicts and tensions. The night before, Wade had taken Melissa's car without her permission, which left her furious and anxious for a confrontation. When Wade appeared at Melissa's house, the argument between them quickly escalated. Melissa, frustrated and irritated with Wade's behavior, confronted him about the car and his recent actions. The fight became increasingly intense, with harsh words and accusations being exchanged. In a moment of extreme anger, Wade lost control. Wade attacked Melissa, trying to strangle her. He caught her by surprise, grabbing her by the neck and squeezing hard. Melissa fought desperately to free herself, kicking and hitting Wade in an attempt to escape. The attack was violent and chaotic, with furniture being knocked over and objects breaking around them. During the attempted strangulation, Wade expressed his intention to kill Melissa and then commit suicide. He was in an extremely disturbed mental state, motivated by a desire for control and destruction. Melissa, even under attack, continued to fight for her life, trying to breathe and escape Wade's deadly grip. Then, suddenly, Wade changed his mind. Perhaps it was a moment of clarity, a temporary lapse in his murderous fury, or simply an impulse to flee before being captured. He released Melissa, leaving her injured and gasping on the floor. Without saying a word, Wade ran out of the house, leaving behind a traumatized Melissa and the scene of chaos and destruction. Melissa, although injured and in shock, managed to seek help. She called the police and reported the attack, providing details about Wade's erratic and dangerous behavior. This incident added another layer to Wade Wilson's profile as a violent and unpredictable criminal, intensifying the authorities' search to capture him before he could cause more harm. Wade Wilson was arrested on October 8, 2019, after being reported by his own biological father, Stephen Tester Seeker. The denunciation occurred due to Wade's confession about his crimes to his father, who, horrified, decided to turn him into the authorities. The police found Wade at his residence, where he was detained without significant resistance. During the period of preventive detention, Wade Wilson changed his version of the facts related to the crimes he committed several times. Initially, he confessed to the homicides with an attitude of coldness and apparent pride. However, as the investigation progressed and he realized the gravity of the accusations and the possible sentence, he began to present different narratives, trying to minimize his responsibility and blaming external factors, such as negative influences from other people and his own psychological state. At the trial, Wade Wilson maintained a presumptuous and remorseless posture. He frequently interrupted the proceedings, showing disdain for the victims and their families. His behaviors included sarcastic smiles and inappropriate comments, which showed a lack of empathy and a defiant attitude towards the cause. Wade Wilson's defense tried to argue that he suffered from a mental illness that affected his capacity for judgment and impulse control. Additionally, it was alleged that he had a history of drug addiction, which would have contributed to his criminal behaviors. The defense presented testimonies from mental health experts who diagnosed Wade with psychological disorders, including antisocial personality disorder and extreme narcissistic traits. However, these arguments were widely contested by the prosecution, which highlighted the calculated and cold nature of the crimes committed. Wade Wilson's defense attempt, based on claims of mental illness and drug addiction, was viewed with skepticism by the jury, who considered the evidence presented and the behaviors demonstrated by Wade during the trial. After the presentation of all evidence and testimonies, the jury found Wade Wilson guilty of the homicides. The decision was unanimous regarding his guilt, but the recommendation for capital punishment was supported by 10 of the 12 jurors. This decision reflected the gravity of the crimes and the jury's perception of the ongoing threat that Wade posed to society. With the recommendation of capital punishment, Wade awaited the final sentence, which was still pending a definitive judicial decision. The case of Wade Wilson became an emblematic example in debates about the glamorization of crime and the nature of social behavior, leading to profound reflections on the true nature of the individual and the motivations behind their acts.